Hi, I'm Rupert and I'm talking about remote working considerations for business owners, and today's topic is collaboration. It's the final of 3 parts on this series. So in part 1 I touched upon the equipment that you'd need from a remote working perspective and a couple of things from a collaboration point of view, specifically surrounding the multimedia side of things, making sure employees have got remote workers have got a webcam and headset with microphone facility in their remote working setup, which is obviously important to be able to participate in remote meetings, that sort of thing. The 2 services that we see most predominantly from a collaboration point of view are Microsoft Teams and Zoom. There's a strong chance you've been in one or more kind of meetings, webinars using one of those platforms recently. There are plenty of other solutions out there, and Slack, Google Meet, Workplace by Facebook are 3 of the others from kind of some of the biggest technology companies in the world. It's very much a growth environment, and we're fortunate to have the technology in place to support remote working these days. I'm going to focus on Microsoft Teams today primarily because it is used by, or kind of 80-90% of our customers have got access to Microsoft Office 365 anyway. There's a strong chance you've already got access to Microsoft Teams, even if it's not something that you've actually deployed internally. So on any of the platforms, we've got video conferencing or remote meetings or that sort of thing, virtual meetings, allowing you to see face-to-face as best as possible people when you can't physically be in the same room as them. Microsoft Teams has in individual channels, the idea being that you can have a chat, a conversation with people on a specific, could be for a department, could be for a project or that sort of thing, and upload images and respond and ask questions and kind of very much collaborate as if you were in a meeting or as if you were working within the same building as them, but just all done via text messaging on the computer. Very much easy to use, very easy to get started with. We as a company have been using it for a little while, and we used Slack for 5 years before that. And it massively cuts down on the amount of internal email traffic between colleagues. Did you see this? Could you deal with that for me? It can just be done in a quick sentence in a Teams channel, rather than actually requiring another email to be processed when somebody gets around to reviewing their inbox. One of the slightly less known features of Microsoft Teams is the files functionality. So you can actually upload files. It's backed by SharePoint Online. You can actually store files within Teams, thereby making them available to other people in the same team as yourself. And it takes it a step further. You can actually modify, open and edit Excel documents, Word documents and so on within Microsoft Teams itself. So you're not constantly jumping out between your collaboration software and Explorer and then opening up Word or Excel and navigating for files. You can do it all there from within the Teams application, which is very convenient. There's a screenshot of an empty spreadsheet, and you can see it's a slightly cut down interface, but you can also, there's a link to open it in the full desktop app if you've got that installed as well. It's worth mentioning you can collaborate in real time, so you could have multiple people in the same spreadsheet at the same time. It's a really useful feature. You can even kind of pin a specific file to a specific channel. So for example, you might have an opportunities spreadsheet in the marketing channel. So everybody that can see that channel, they can just click on it and they've automatically got the opportunities. And if they see one of their colleagues is editing it in real time, the changes will be reflected in real time. Equally useful for jobs lists for the operations team, or kind of management accounts, financial reports for the accounts team. So very convenient, and Microsoft are very much trying to make Teams the desktop application hub for the future. We've already seen kind of your calendar will be shown there at the moment, and there's talk of them introducing Outlook functionality in there, and so in the near future. As I mentioned, all the files are stored in the background on SharePoint Online, so part of your Office 365 subscription. As I said, a very strong chance you've already got all this functionality in place, even if you haven't been using it historically. Another thing you can do with Teams from a collaboration remote working point of view is screen sharing. So typically you'd think of the presenter on a webinar presenting a PowerPoint presentation or something to you, but it can also be used from a support perspective as well. So if you're struggling to achieve something and your colleague can help you, if you just set up a Teams meeting with them, you can then share your screen, and they can see exactly on your screen where you're stuck, what you're trying to achieve, and kind of point you in the right direction, or even take control and drive your computer for you effectively, in much the same way that a support engineer will have done for you in the past. That functionality isn't limited to kind of Word and Excel. They can actually take control of the whole computer if you give them that level of access to it. So great from a collaboration point of view, and it reduces another barrier. You're not physically next to your colleagues in the office when working remotely, but you can still get as much support and assistance from them as you need. So from a business application point of view, there's a strong chance you're using one or more cloud-based services already. Office 365, Xero for accounts, MailChimp for your newsletter list, Salesforce for a CRM, and obviously there's a number of alternative solutions to all of these. When we refer to line of business applications, we're talking about the specific applications that you use within your business to produce your product, to whether it's a product that you physically manufacture or a service that you deliver. So for an accounting company, it might be their kind of the software they use to produce management accounts. From an IFA, it may be the software they use to manage their clients' investments. Or producing design drawings or so on for an architectural company, for example. At NetPrimates, we use a product called ConnectWise Manage, which is our PSA, Professional Services Automation Utility, and it manages all of our jobs and time tracking and billing and absolutely everything within the company. And it's specific to us as an IT company, specific to the IT industry. So there's a good chance that you may have your own. I've put up a screenshot of Workflow Max on the screen. It's a company that was bought by Xero back in 2012, and useful for companies that manage jobs, so call outs for engineers, electricians, plumbers, that sort of thing. Allows you to track time and generates billing and that sort of thing. So very much similar to our internal solution, but that one's not industry specific. So the importance of considering line of business applications is, where is your data? Where do people need to access, and ultimately can the whole team stay on the same page for whatever's going on at the same time, especially important now you're not all in the same office. So through the introduction of of some sort of line of business application or PSA, you might be able to monitor the productivity of your team, check that nothing's being dropped, that nothing's fallen through the cracks. There's a number of other solutions out there, a couple of Microsoft ones that again are likely to be part of your existing 365 subscriptions you're paying for, include Microsoft To Do and Microsoft Planner, which is kind of a very cut down version of Project. But the benefit of these services being cloud-based really come into its own from a remote workforce perspective. It means that the manager in one location can keep an eye on productivity, can keep an eye on how things are going, and equally importantly can keep an eye on kind of watch out for any stalled projects or anything that is falling behind, to ensure that the whole team are just as productive while working remotely as they are when they're face to face. Lastly, it's really important to consider the team well-being, and the ability to collaborate comes into this one. It's absolutely not a case of out of sight, out of mind, just because you're not physically in the same building as people. You can still chat with them, still say good morning to them, still available to them to kind of for help and support and assistance if needed. So there's absolutely no excuse for kind of forgetting about people, or for people feeling left out or forgotten, but it does require the company, the managers, to make a concerted effort to actively keep in touch. We've got a couple of tips, do's and don'ts. Strongly encourage people to maintain regular meeting cadences. So if you have a weekly staff meeting in the office, there's no reason you can't do it remotely. You can schedule it in Teams and it'll pop up and everyone can dial in at exactly the same time each week. You're just doing it via a webcam. I would suggest people allow a little bit of extra time for planning, because when you're not face to face, sometimes you need to explain things, it takes a little bit longer, or you don't quite realise that people didn't understand what you said the first time. So strongly encourage you to allow a little bit of extra time for that sort of thing. Everybody should know it's perfectly acceptable to ask for help when you need it, either just as a channel, a message in a chat channel, or getting in touch, arranging a meeting or so on with people as needed. It's important not to let the quiet people get forgotten, the quiet people or the people that aren't perhaps quite as comfortable with the technology. You can always still pick up the phone if you get stuck with something, in exactly the same way as you'd walk over to your colleague's desk and say, hey, can you have a look at this? Can you give me a hand with this? Pick up the phone or send them a message or whatever. Don't just expect it all to be virtual and done with Teams meetings. So a couple of tips there for that. So the purpose of this series of 3 videos has been to encourage people to take action. From a remote working point of view for business owners, remote working is here to stay, so it's very much important to make the best of the current situation. And to do that, it's important to make sure people have got the equipment that they need to remain efficient while working remotely. To be aware from a cybersecurity point of view what the current situation is, what's the impact, what did we open, what have we allowed in, are we using the right tools and services, have we got the right cybersecurity policies in place. It's also important to document the setup and review it regularly. So in a changing environment, as frequently as kind of quarterly or every 6 monthly at least, because there's a good chance there's change going on in your business prompted by remote working. And kind of moving more and more to the cloud and so on. It's really important to make sure that your backups and your cybersecurity and so on is taken care of, but not something that you should be having to do by yourself or on your own. Very much should be working alongside your IT provider to deal with that. Lastly, check that your team have actually got access to the services and documents they need, and discuss communication levels. If you think it's getting a bit quiet, talk to them about it. Inject some fun. You can still have pizza parties on the last day of the month. You just got to send pizza to more addresses than previously, and get everybody on the same Teams call at the same time, the same virtual meeting at the same time, and get it scheduled in kind of a couple of weeks in advance so people know that they're expected to attend. There's plenty of things you can do. Likewise, if people have got other applications that they want to use, if they want to talk about other services or they've got a more efficient way of doing things now that they're remote, be aware that the environment has changed, and very much encourage feedback from the team and suggestions. So this is the last video in this series. I really hope you found it useful. Would be grateful if you could share it with anyone else who you think might benefit. You can click subscribe or visit the site below to receive notifications when new videos are posted. Thanks very much, and we look forward to seeing you again.